Plants vs. Zombies 2 has over 300 levels spread over a total of 11 worlds. All of those 11 worlds have a unique theme and offer a lot of various gameplay and challenges. In this video I'm gonna be ranking every single world in Plants vs. Zombies 2, from ancient Egypt all the way to modern day. This list will be based off how creative and original the worlds are, how fun it is to play, how good the plant and zombie selection is, and of course my opinions on them. So without further ado, let's get started. 11. Dark Ages. There are so many reasons why this world is my least favorite. Sure, the Sun Shroom, Puff Shroom and Fume Shroom are pretty decent plants which can actually be useful in a lot of levels outside of this world, but that's about it for the positive stuff. First of all, the world only has 20 levels, which is much less than most of the other worlds in the game. However, for some weird reason, these levels are really tedious because they are so unnecessarily long. Even the first couple of levels are really long for some bizarre reason. Secondly, the Jester and Wizard zombies are some of the most annoying zombies in the entire game, which doesn't make this world any better. And the music in this world is also really weird, especially emphasized by the kazoo, which doesn't sound great at all. This world is just really disappointing compared to all the other ones and feels like pure filler so the developers could throw in the iconic night plants from the first game. 10. Jurassic Marsh. I'm pretty sure quite some people will disagree with me when I say that Jurassic Marsh is the second worst world in the game. Sure, the dinosaur selection is neat and has probably the most iconic dinosaurs ever. The plants in this world are really good and include some of the best plants in the game, like the Primal Walnut or Primal Potato Mine. But the rest of this world is a huge letdown. While the dinosaurs are unique, they can be extremely annoying, especially whenever the level starts spamming them the entire time. Then there are the levels themselves, which are some of the shortest and most unmemorable levels in the whole game. It's funny how a lot of the levels in this world are a lot shorter than most of the levels in the first 3 worlds. It doesn't even show that the developers put a lot of effort or even any effort into them at all. And finally, the music is subjectively some of the worst music in the game. The Midwave B music sounds nice, but I'm just not a fan of this country style music, and Midwave B doesn't even play on Android at all, which is really sad. So yeah, this world is not that great. 9. Ancient Egypt. The first world in the game, but unfortunately also one of the worst ones. Let's start with the positives. Firstly, this world has some pretty good plants, like the iceberg lettuce and its remarkable plant root power, Gravebuster, which is particularly useful in Dark Ages, and the twin sunflower, which is a really good sun producing plant and useful in many levels ahead. This world also has a great difficulty curve, even though that random 3 flag level 16 in the middle of the world is pretty weird to say the least. The progression of levels and the tutorials at the start are pretty good apart from that one level mentioned earlier. However, now it's time for the negative stuff. First of all, the zombies in this world are pretty bad and not really creative. The Explorer and Tomb Raiser are okay, but apart from that, every other zombie is just a regular zombie with either no significant change at all or just a simple shield. The Pharaoh zombie might look cool, but he's just a zombie with more health and speed, and that's it. And the Raw zombie is, well, just pathetic. It's an okay starter world for sure, but not really suitable for much else. 8. Wild West. Again, some people might think this world belongs higher on the list, which is fair because most of the stuff I'm listing here will be subjective. The plants in this world are golden and are all really useful outside of this world, maybe besides the split pea, but they are still amazing nonetheless. And this world also has probably the most creative minigame in the entire game, Not Okay Corral, which requires some real thinking and even reflexes because this minigame can get pretty tough in the later levels. That said, even though the minigame is great, I am not a big fan of the minecarts gimmick in this world. The majority of the time, the minecarts won't be very useful, especially because I don't like to use strategies that purely rely on that gimmick. The rails are just constantly in the way and limit my planting options a lot more than I want to accept. It's not a terrible gimmick and it's mostly my opinion, but this world would have been a lot better for me if some levels just had less minecarts or didn't have minecarts at all. Oh, and I almost forgot, the chicken wrangler zombies. I think that says enough. 7. Pirate Seas. Here's another world with a gimmick that I just don't find useful at all. Missing planks. In fact, I would argue that the gimmick of this world is the worst one in the entire game. It's funny to realize this considering this gimmick makes the levels a lot easier than if all the levels had all the planks. Sure, it makes for some variety, but it takes away a lot of the difficulty, even up to the point where I would say this world is easier than ancient Egypt, the first world in the game. On the other hand, some of the plants in this world are again really good, especially the Snapdragon and Cherry Bomb, the last plant being one that I almost always bring with me in every single level. The Coconut Cannon also isn't bad despite the high sunk cost, even though the reload timer is pretty long. The minigame in this world, while nowhere near as creative or original as the one in Wild West, is really fun and gives you a real frantic feeling. And the zombies in this world are also not bad. The parrots can be really annoying, but is easy to take out for a compromise. The cannon has an imp blast off when you take too long destroying it, making it a really cool zombie as well. The barrel roller, on the other hand, is hard to take out normally, but really easy with spike weeds and spike rocks, and it's probably the best zombie in this world. So in short, this world is okay, even though the gimmick is pretty bad. 6. NIN Mixtape Tour. Opinions about this world are spread quite a lot, but I think it's a pretty decent world. The music gimmick is pretty cool and it allows for a lot of creative zombies and level design and some decent music across the levels. This is actually the world with the most diverse soundtrack, which is a real shame because it, like all the other worlds, didn't even have the special tracks which got removed from the game. The fact that certain gimmicks only activate whenever a specific jam plays is really cool, even though it does get pretty repetitive. However, as cool as this gimmick is, it isn't really used in the best way. Most of the levels just randomly switch between jams in a really uncreative and uninspired way, making the transitions too boring and predictable. A lot of the zombies from an upcoming jam already spawn before the jam even plays, making it way too easy to kill them and making the transition even more dull. And then we have the plants, which aren't great either. Don't get me wrong, I love Time Warp, but the fact that you can't even use it outside of this world makes it a lot less special. Celery Stalker and Spore Shroom aren't bad either, but aren't useful in a lot of levels either. And the rest of the plants are too weak to the point where I never even use them after I've unlocked them, especially the Garlic and Intensive Carrot. And finally, the Zalmas fight is a pain in the ass. It takes way too long to beat him, and the phases get progressively worse and worse right up until the final phase, which is without a doubt the most painful phase during any Zalmas fight in the whole game. So to conclude, this world is fine, even though really annoying and pretty underwhelming sometimes. 5. Lost City. A world with two of the most annoying zombies in the game. Well, at least when paired. The Excavator and the Parasol zombies. Even though they are very annoying to say the least, they are great and offer some great challenges and careful strategizing, because in most of the levels these two zombies always appear together. Forgot to bring a lob shot plant? Too bad. Forgot to bring a straight shooting plant? Well, you're out of luck. It's insane how only two zombies can accomplish this much of a challenge. The rest of the zombies, while not terrible, aren't that special and more or less just different versions of zombies seen before, like the Skull Zombie or the Relic Hunter. Do you know how most aforementioned worlds on this list had pretty good or really good minigames? Well, Lost City has one too, but it can barely be called a minigame because it is terrible. If you don't know what I'm talking about, levels 22 and 28 consist of this minigame. This is beyond doubt the worst and most unmemorable minigame in the whole game, and when I say it, I really mean it. Basically, it involves these so-called trap tiles. These tiles ruin the entire challenge of the levels, especially when you're literally given free plants, which make the minigame even easier than it already was. Even the Gargantua can be killed instantly. Finally, there are the gold tiles, which are okay but not really impactful in most levels at all, especially when generating sun is already really easy. So yeah, Lost City is a pretty good world and has some great levels and zombies here and there, but it also has some really bad moments. 4. Frostbite Caves. The fourth world in the game happens to be a number 4 on the list, and where things start to become even better. Frostbite Caves had a pretty excellent plant selection, including plants like the life-saving Charguard and the Rhodobega. The zombie selection could be better and is most definitely worse than the one in Lost City, but still isn't that bad. Sure, while the Weasel Hoarder is pretty annoying, the Dodo Rider and Hunter are pretty original and can ruin your strategy pretty quickly, much like the Freezing Wind, which is also pretty cool, and the fact that zombies cannot be frozen in this world just adds more to the difficulty in a good way. It's only unfortunate that that there's no minigame in this world, because it could have added 2 more levels, rounding the total up to 32 for this world. Maybe the minigame involved the freezing wind or perhaps the slider tiles. On the topic of slider tiles, they are okay and add some challenge to the levels, primarily because weasels and dodos can pass over them, but they are more in the way than anything else, making my planting options too limited, just like with the minecarts. Finally, we have the Zalmas fight, which is okay, but it is a little bit too short and easy in my opinion. The boss gets stunned constantly, which makes it too easy to deal damage, especially with plants like a 3-peter or Rhodobega. In short, Frostbite Caves is a pretty good world that doesn't have many flaws. 3. Big Wave Beach. This world is a favorite for many people, even though it can be extremely frustrating at times. The theme of this world is appreciated quite a lot, just like the music, which is some of the best in the game, and the gimmick of the world being the title changes during the level. The zombie selection is really good, although they are very annoying. Their unique traits combined with the challenges in the levels make for some really interesting strategies and really frantic gameplay. The plant selection is a bit worse and only has 2 somewhat interesting plants, the bowling bulb and the banana launcher. These 2 plants can be useful sometimes, but most of the time there are much better plants to choose from. The lily pad is only useful in the water, which is perfect for this world, but makes it one of the worst plants in the rest of the game. The Tangle Kelp can be life-saving and is very cheap, which is really nice, but again, it's only useful in the water. And the Guacodile is basically just a regular pea shooter with a small unique attack when zombies get too close, and even then that attack doesn't really achieve much. Another gimmick in this world is the low tide. This gimmick rarely happens in the first few levels, but happens quite frequently in the latter half of the world. Low tide can screw up your defenses extremely fast, so you have to have quick reflexes or else, well, you're dead. Another great thing about this world is the bowling minigame, and it's probably even better than the one in the first game. Even though it is pretty luck based, there are now 4 projectiles that you can get from the conveyor belt instead of just 2. So yeah, Big Wave Beach is surely a goodie. 2. Modern Day. Many people will probably wonder why Modern Day is so high on my list, but I have my reasons. The fact that this world mixes all of the previous worlds together isn't really too well received, but that is actually something that I really like. The fact that this world takes most of the zombies from the previous worlds, combines them into multiple levels, and even has a unique gimmick, that being portals, is amazing. Sure, portals don't really appear often during most levels, but thinking about it now, it's probably a good thing considering portals aren't really that great of a gimmick anyway. The zombie selection, while not that big, is a really nice throwback to the original game. There is the newspaper zombie and the all-star zombie, which mostly resembles the football zombie from the first game. The only complaint I have about the zombies is that they are really overpowered, but if you're using a good strategy, that shouldn't be a big problem. Another really good thing about this world is the music. This world has my favorite music from the game, even without including the special tracks. The songs from this world are basically remixes of music from the first game, but then even better, at least in my opinion. This world also introduces the Dustglobber, one of my favorite plants in the game. Dustglobber deals quite a lot of damage and even splash damage, making for a really powerful plant and a useful plant in many strategies. The only real complaint I have left is that quite some levels are either too short or too easy for this world, or both. But maybe that's just because of my overpowered strategies. Anyway, Modern Day is a really good world and is definitely underrated in my opinion. And 1 is Far Future. Finally, we have the best world in the game. Far Future not only has some of the best plants in the game, including the Infinite and Magnifying Grass, but also one of the most interesting zombie selections and gimmicks so far. The plant selection includes Laserbeam, which is not bad, but pretty slow. Blubber, which can be life-saving many times throughout the game. Citron, which deals a lot of damage. EM Peach, which can help but not really outside of this world. Infinite, which has one of the best power food effects out of all the plants in the game. Magnifying Grass, which is my favorite plant and a really good way to quickly deal damage and basically kill every single zombie. And finally the Tall Turnip, which can be useful but also quite expensive. Then there are the zombies, which are also really good. The Shield Zombie, Discotron and the Mecha Football Zombies are all 3 excellent zombies because they have a really interesting attack. Shield Zombie can protect itself and zombies behind him with a penetrable force field. Disco Trunk can summon jetpack zombies over time, and the Mecha Football Zombie can push every plant in a lane backwards and even off the field. Oh yeah, the power tiles. These are really interesting because they allow you to give plant food to a plant on one power tile and then send it over to other power tiles of the same color, which is extremely useful if you need a lot of sun or deal a lot of damage really quickly. This world also has a pretty cool minigame called Sun Bombs, where destructive sun falls from the sky, which if you touch it while it's still falling, it blows up and deals damage to any nearby plants and zombies. The only annoying thing about this world is the Gargantua Prime, but that's kind of intentional, so I'm not really gonna complain about it. To conclude, Far Future is an excellent world, and in my opinion, the best world in the game. Alright, but I think that's enough for this video. Please let me know what your list of the worlds is in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel. Maybe even consider ringing the bell to keep track of my channel. I hope to see you in the next video, and as always, goodbye.